Hello, my name's Andrew Kalita from On Demand HR, and today we're going to be tackling and offering some of our thoughts on the very highly charged topic of mandatory vaccinations in New South Wales workplaces. If I'm completely honest with you, we had some significant internal debate on if we should be releasing any content on this subject matter at the risk of polarising any individual or business owner, as our observations have been that this issue is highly divisive and one which both businesses and individuals feel very strongly one way or the other, with very little in the middle. Ultimately, we've resolved that we have an obligation to our audience to discuss the current state of play as at 12 August 2021, some of the proposed legislation in this space, the case for mandatory workplace vaccinations balanced against some of the inherent risks, as well as our current advice in this space for our clients. We do this not to advocate one position or another, but rather to inform and let our audience into some of the conversations that we are having within the business internally and ultimately with our clients to allow individual businesses to make a more informed decision with regards to a workplace relations strategy that is right for them. And finally, before I get into the content, for the purposes of this video, we will be sticking to the workplace relations side of this debate. And much of what we have to cover today will ultimately be decided in the courts and the commissions. And therefore, we must say that this commentary is for information purposes. And prior to making any decisions, we strongly advise and encourage you to seek independent advice regarding your individual circumstances. If you're watching this on social media, this is part of a longer session on this subject matter, which you can view by visiting ondemandhr.com.au or by using the link in this post. So let's get into the current state of mandatory vaccinations in New South Wales. Currently, as you may be aware, the federal government has issued a vaccination mandate for all aged care workers, and the New South Wales state government has further extended this to cover quarantine and airport workers. We'll be dealing with the construction workers in a moment. Now, I think that most of us will agree that these industries are high risk for the purposes of contracting and spreading COVID-19. And based on our many discussions, we have not heard many objections to the vaccination mandates in these industries. However, this does bring into play some interesting legal considerations when the discussion is broadened to should the New South Wales government broaden their vaccination mandate even further. We note that currently up for debate is the broader healthcare industry, with nurses working in ICU wards dealing with COVID patients not currently required to be vaccinated, albeit we do assume that most would do so voluntarily. However, as we understand it, the federal government has responsibility for aged care, and therefore they have issued the vaccination mandate, but does not have the power, or at very least the will, to enforce mandates for other industries, as Prime Minister Morrison has stated on many occasions and effectively passed the buck for this to the state governments. Now, this is really interesting and challenging from a workplace relations perspective, as the states are seeking to make mandatory vaccination decisions which would have real-world implications in a federal-based industrial relations system, including potential unfair dismissal and adverse action claims. Ultimately, there are only two ways in which these conflicts can be resolved, either through legislation or through precedent and case law. In our view, there appears to be a very little appetite to resolve this through legislation to effectively provide a blanket approval for businesses to implement mandatory vaccination policies in their workplace. So the most likely outcome is that it's going to be left to the courts and the commissions to make determinations regarding the reasonableness of such directives and any potential discrimination under protected attributes such as religion and political beliefs. If implications and liabilities for making mandatory vaccination policies in the workplace is left to the courts and the commissions to determine, in our view, this poses a very serious risk for businesses in bringing such policies into place. Accordingly, we are reluctant to advocate for businesses to go down the mandatory vaccination path at this time and await further direction from both state and federal governments before taking action outside these existing mandates. And to be perfectly clear, this discussion is not on the efficacy of COVID vaccinations. It's not an attack on policy decisions, but rather some constructive thoughts on the potential workplace relations implications of adopting mandatory vaccinations in a workplace with the absence of legislative support. At this time, we'd like to invite you to share your opinion, your views, and your experiences. And if you'd like to have a discussion about this and some potential strategies for your workplace, please do not hesitate to reach out to us by visiting ondemandhr.com.au. Finally, if you're watching this on social media, this is an extract from a longer session on this subject matter where we tackle this challenging question from multiple angles and perspectives. And you can view the entire session on our website at ondemandhr.com.au. So from the entire team here at On Demand HR, we hope that you're staying safe, and we are ready and available to help support your business in any way that we can.